Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. After weeks of blocking the EU's 18th sanctions package against Russia, Slovakia has changed course. Prime Minister Robert Fico announced that Slovakia will no longer stand in the way, citing newly secured guarantees from Brussels to protect its energy interests. EU member states have now adopted new sanctions against Russia. Joining us is Martin Sklenár, he's former Slovakian defence minister, to explain what led to this shift, Slovakia's evolving position on Russia and Ukraine, and the broader implications for European unity and energy security. Welcome, sir, to TVP World, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much for having me back on the show.
Pleasure as always. So, an about turn, it seems, by Slovakian administration. Talk us through this. How did it happen?
Well, so with the before the 18th package of sanctions, the Slovak government actually made an effort through the Slovak parliament to get a stronger political position in Brussels, and they actually adopted a position of the parliament that the government should not agree to any further sanctions against Russia. I mean, the government didn't expect this position to go through the parliament so quickly or so easily, but in the end, this is the situation that they brought themselves in. The motivation behind not agreeing to the sanctions package is actually not in the sanctions package itself, but in the concerns that the Slovak government has with a different proposal coming from the European Commission, which is the phase out of Russian fuels being imported into the EU by the end of 2027. But that decision requires only a qualified majority vote, where Slovakia would be, where Slovakia's opposition would not be hampering a collective decision by the EU. So the Slovak government decided to block the sanctions and have a discussion with the Commission also about the other piece of the legislation, which is coming or making its way through the process.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that actually they weren't really blocking the sanctions; they were simply using it as a tool to have their voices heard on the reduction in reliance on Russian energy. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct, yes. And given the different voting procedures in the two pieces of legislation, the Slovak government opted for the obstruction on the sanctions piece, just to be able to negotiate on the other piece of the legislation.
Okay, but the sanctions were vetoed 6 times by the Slovakian government. That's a lot of times. I mean, plenty of time there for representatives of the Slovakian government to talk to Brussels and say, listen, guys, we need to talk about how Russian energy is needed in Slovakia. Why didn't that happen?
Yes, I mean, obviously, there were negotiations, and we have seen communication between the Commission, between the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and Prime Minister Fico taking place on exactly these issues. Given the information that we have at our disposal, it's not entirely clear what were the objectives or the requirements that the Slovak government had vis-a-vis this piece of legislation. And it's also not entirely clear what were what the government was able to achieve in the negotiations with the European Commission. All we know is that basically Ursula von der Leyen and the European Commission proposed or put on the table a kind of a comfort letter for the Slovak government, making sure that it's understood and there's a complete awareness that if the situation becomes unbearable and there's a crisis caused by whatever factors, maybe price hikes or unavailability of other sources of gas for Slovakia, then there would be a crisis procedure that would guarantee for Slovakia the possibility to have exemptions from the from the common European position vis-a-vis Russian gas and oil imports.
But why is Slovakia in this unique position within the European Union that its reliance on Russian energy is so great, and other countries have been able to wean themselves off, or are weaning themselves off this source of energy, but Slovakia can't or won't? What's happening?
The impact on Slovakia is basically twofold. Of course, first is the increase of prices because European countries very rightly decided not to buy any more Russian gas and oil with the discount that comes with the possibility of political interference that comes from Russia. But also in Slovakia's case, it's losing the money that it got from the transfer or transport across the territory of Slovakia farther west to customers in the west. Those are not anymore there. No other countries in the European Union are willing to buy Russian gas. So Slovakia is losing basically this source of income, and it's a trade-off for a freer policy and win for the democracy in Slovakia and less influence from Russia into Slovak politics. The most important factor from the point of view of the Prime Minister is an existing contract with the Russian company Gazprom, where he cites billions of damages that would be caused if this contract was not fulfilled, even if other European countries and the European Commission are trying to explain that introduction of a legislation from the European level would be regarded as a force majeure in this legal arrangement that Slovakia has with Gazprom, and Slovakia would not be liable for any of these damages that the Prime Minister is using as an argument.
Understood. Now, you mentioned Russian influence in Slovakia. How would you characterize the relationship between those two countries?
Well, certainly it has taken a very sharp turn after the election, and with the introduction of the government under Prime Minister Fico leadership. His fourth government has now charted this course of making sure that the relationship between Slovakia and Russia is a constructive one, and basically is built on a different appreciation and assessment of the situation, where Slovakia, the Prime Minister and other members of his cabinet are citing that they are not in the same position as other European states when it comes to the assessment of the threat coming from Russia, and they really are interested in having a constructive relationship with Russia and are asking for dialogue.
Constructive in what way, sir?
Especially economic relations should be reinstated. I think the gas and oil issues, of course, but also nuclear fuel. Those are very important topics for the Prime Minister to discuss with Russia, since it's easier, of course, to get cheap sources or resources from Russia, even if they are if they come with in a package with political influence.
Understood. Unfortunately, Mr. Sklenár, we're going to have to end it there, but thank you so much for sharing your analysis with our audience. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away, there are lots more coming up. Goodbye.